It's time for me to rank another actor, and to go along with my Comeback King series, I've picked John Travolta for this one. John Travolta's action thrillers. There may be a few missing connections here, but I've tried to avoid any talky thrillers like Mad City, and I've missed a few direct-to-video releases, Lonely Hearts, The Poison Rose, and Speed Kills. If you've seen any of those, then please do let us know in the comments down below what you think of their quality. But here are 26 John Travolta movies ranked for your pleasure from the bottom to the top. Battlefield Earth. Oh boy, what a mess. Maybe not quite as big a mess as you would think, as the budget for this one isn't nearly as astronomical as was made out to be at the time. The budget was 44 million and it took in just under 30, so it's not a colossal flop, and by now it's probably broken even. It is, however, accurate to say that the film is an absolute mess. It looks horrid. You have never seen such a range of bad effects work, with only the occasional decent shot. The acting is all over the shop, and it's very hard to take seriously. Mankind has almost gone back to the Stone Age, living in caves and huts, whilst under the rule of an alien race who conquered Earth 1,000 years previous. Of course, humans learn how to revolt, and well, before you know it, people have learned how to shoot guns and fly spaceships. And it's all an absolute atrocious mess. Travolta is a bit hammy as the lead bad guy. I've seen him worse, to be honest, but this isn't any good either. Trading Paint 2019. Holy crap, what a melodrama. Talladega snores as Travolta plays an old school racer whose son decides to opt and go work for the competition as they have a better chance of him winning. Family dramas ensues, dangerous antics on the track follow, father and son reconcile and team up in the third act to stick it to the bad guys. Yawn. I Am Wrath 2016. Chuck, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Blob remake, The Mask, and Eraser Russell directs this very flat TV looking movie. Digital filmmaking may be a cheaper way to make a film, but a film they do not maketh. This very boring looking film will make cinephiles recoil in horror. Travolta's playing a grieving husband who goes on the warpath to avenge his wife's killers. He teams up with Old Forces buddy Christopher Maloney, who essentially looks like America's answer to Mark Strong. He adds some levity and some action to the mix, but it's all rather a forgettable and very cheap looking affair. Paradise City 2022. Well, director Chuck Russell is back for even more low-budget digital filmmaking. Travolta and Bruce Willis reteamed? Not so fast. Don't let the cover art fool you. This is the stage of Willis's career where he was in and out of movies for quick paychecks and fed his lines on the day, and it really shows in the opening scene. You can tell Willis was given general direction about the intent of the scene and the lines to say, and he had one crack at the lot. They have edited around the actor as well, and he does not look good. It's almost sickening, and certainly has put me off watching any more of these films he made in the last few years as a performer that went straight to video. As a main character, I guess we get a young unknown actor playing his son, who is out to find out what happened to his dad. Throw in Stephen Dorff, who is no stranger to DTV movies these days either, for a bit of support, some other truly awful supporting players, a terrible script, and then Travolta, who is on bad guys duties. Again, limited screen time, but at least Travolta is putting in some sort of effort, but this is just horrid and a waste of everybody's time, especially the audience. Domestic Disturbance. Barely registering as a thriller, is there anything worth caring about in this Travolta versus Vince Vaughn piece? Travolta is a happily divorced man, sharing a son. Along comes new hubby Vince Vaughn, and slowly the cracks start to show that he has a dark side, which gives way to intolerance and eventually murder. It's up to old dad to step in and help save the day. What could have been a very interesting actor versus actor powerhouse thriller instead is a routine sleepwalk for everyone involved. Wasted opportunity. Savages 2012. This one goes way low, largely because Travolta isn't a big player in it. The film is also a crazy mess, but will appeal to anyone who loves drugs, road movies, cartel violence, sex, Taylor Kitsch's butt, and unhinged Benicio del Toro performances. The film, like Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers, is often a headache to watch visually. It feels like he's trying to play to a younger demographic with the idea that younger adults see things through an acid-soaked lens. It isn't a bloody Tony Scott movie, but it sure looks like one. The Forger, 2014. Travolta's con gets released early from prison on the proviso that he takes part in an art theft. He does this in the name of being able to spend time with his teenage son, played by Ty Sheridan. Christopher Plummer adds weight as Travolta's dad, and it's an okay enough drama if you just want to see people act. But it's more suited to the small screen, and Travolta's quiet performance isn't suited to him. He is better when he stands out, not when he slinks into the background. Killing Season. Travolta and De Niro. Sounds awesome. But I'm pretty sure this one was direct to video as well when I saw it. This one sees Travolta's wound up Serbian soldier out for revenge against De Niro's American soldier, who's packed it all in. Into the wilderness we go, where they meet and eventually face off in the most dangerous game. The problem is that after maybe half an hour of this, the film runs out of steam and surprises. You suddenly realise that the film can't do certain things without the credits rolling as a result. So what you are left with is a prolonged situation where you are just waiting for the third act to roll around just to see if it has anything up its sleeve. It doesn't. The Fanatic, 2019. Fred Durst directs Travolta as he tries something very different with this LA set drama about an autistic man named Moose who lives for being a fan of celebrities. In particular, he has a thing for Devon Sawa's actor Hunter Dunbar. He is just waiting for the opportunity for a meet. All he wants to do is say hello, pledge his allegiance, and get the man's autograph. But complications stop this from happening on a couple of occasions, and Moose doesn't know how to process this, so ends up stepping over the line, and eventually things get a little crazy. It won Travolta a Golden Raspberry Award, which was kind of cruel. The film isn't anywhere near that level of bad. Plaudits have to be given to the man for trying something new. This sort of role you only ever see every now and again with an A-lister attached to it, usually with De Niro in the main role. Be Cool. The sequel to Get Shorty. Travolta may still have the Chili Palmer charm, but the film is bloated and overstuffed with too many caricatures as opposed to characters. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson gets credit for his amusing performance, showing that he has some range, which he then duly tossed aside in favour of a one persona. Vince Vaughn is the main culprit, doing God knows what on screen. The rest are largely forgettable, including Uma Thurman. Travolta is perhaps par for the course, but it is a demerit enough to drop the film this far down the list below where the original lays. Cash Out, 2024. Professional thief Travolta hangs it up in the opening act after being turned on by a loved one. Sometime later he is roped back in. Nothing new about this. Suspicions are raised by the company it's from, and even from the director Randall Emmett, going by the name Ives, might put some viewers on caution mode. But the owner of the company isn't going to deal himself a bad hand, so what we get here is actually mostly enjoyable, and one of the mostly enjoyable movies from the Emmett Sabin films. Disposable but diverting enough. High Rollers 2025, the sequel to Cash Out, brings back pretty much the entire cast except Kristen Davis, who is upgraded to Gina Gershon. Travolta's in good shape for a man in his 70s. This time round, the team get attacked on the offset and are forced to do a job for the bad guy from the previous venture. So we are pretty much in discount Ocean's 11 territory, or in this case, Ocean's 12. It's a fun cast, and like the first film, it's diverting enough for a cheapie. To their credit, they ramp up the stakes and the action, making for an improved experience. A third film is on the way. Basic. John "Die Hard" McTiernan's last movie as a director was sadly just a bit of a 3-star anomaly. It's also the reunion of John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, proving that lightning doesn't strike twice. It's a bit of a who cares who did what military action drama, with Travolta trying to be way too sexy and likeable to his female colleagues. That screams for an HR call against him. Connie Nielsen has to put up with this shit as they try to figure out what happened to a basic maneuvers group who hit the jungle led by Sam Jackson, only for 2 of them to come back. By the time the twists come, you really don't care. The dialogue is insufferable, but the kind that Netflix would be happy with today. Dumb leading the dumb, I guess. But it does at times look like a John McTiernan movie. Did you know he was only in his early 50s when he made this? His last film! Criminal Activities 2015 is a fairly decent little drama featuring 4 old school buddies played by the likes of character actors Michael Pitt, Dan Stevens, Christopher Abbott and Rob Brown, who devise a scheme to get rich quick that backfires on them and leaves them in debt with a local well-known gangster, played by Travolta. Part of their payback is to kidnap another well-known gangster to be used as leverage against another kidnapping. So the majority of the film is these 4 guys in an apartment shouting back and forth with their kidnappee, and with each other. I lost count how many times someone shouted, "Shut the fuck up!" at someone else in the room. Travolta is essentially the glorified cameo with limited screen time, but it's a fun little farce that reminded me of the 90s Suicide Kings, which also had a cast of known actors on a kidnapping scheme. This one just isn't as funny as that, although Jackie O'Haley, who also directed this, does amuse when he's on screen. The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Oh, and speaking of Tony Scott earlier on, here he is. Tony Scott hires Denzel Washington's good guy to go up against Travolta's bad guy in this unnecessary remake of the 70s film that is well respected. It doesn't seem to make much sense to remake the film set in the modern day. That's just begging for trouble. It's easy to see why the leads were chosen and that they have their moments together, usually conversing over radio. Each actor gets to show their range, but it's expected behaviour, and by the end of the film it isn't really trying to reinvent anything. Just give the audiences an A, B, C thriller ride for 100 minutes, and in that regard it's merely competent. The General's Daughter. The film wants to be a soldier story, but instead it's a bloated adaptation that loses all sense of suspense as it drags on. There is an impressive list of names to support each step of the way, but you are usually ahead of the game. It's a decent enough thriller for the time, but it lacks pace. Travolta is fine, but it's a film you'll remember being better than it actually is, simply because the talent outweighed the material. Mobland 2023. One of the really few exceptions from the DTV world where we actually get a fairly decent film. Its short running time doesn't help with the character growth, but the film at least is unpredictable in its nature. Charlo Fernandez is out of work and a broke family man, being talked into robbing their local drug dealers by his brother-in-law, Kevin Dillon. Enter Stephen Dorff's vengeful enforcer who steals pretty much the rest of the show. Travolta is the local sheriff who remains on the outskirts of the narrative pretty much from the start to the end. This makes for him to be somewhat ineffectual, and this might have been a nice surprise come the ending and seemed headed that way, a la Tommy Lee Jones in No Country for Old Men, but the film can't resist one last little bit of business in the literal closing shot. It might cheer some people up, but I thought it would have been braver without it. Either way, Dorff is your man for this film, Travolta is a supporting second. In A Valley of Violence, Ethan Hawke's hardened drifter is put upon by a small-town idiot with too much power under his wing. Travolta's dad and sheriff is likeable, but trapped in the middle of the mayhem thanks to his lunatic son. This is a leading Ethan Hawke movie, but Travolta is welcome, if without some agency. Swordfish. Swordfish starts off promising enough. It's midway through the film and so it drops you right into the action in an explosive way, but it's also too clever for its own good by proclaiming that the problem with Hollywood is that it makes shit. Bold words, and then the film can't elevate itself past its own cliches to actually be much better. It gets hard to get past the opening incident because of how dumb the police are portrayed with their antics. It's an immediate fist to the TV screen before the film pauses and then rewinds the action to the start of the story. But marks for trying, and a fun cast. Travolta himself is already proven as a bad guy. Here, it isn't a role that makes much sense by the end game, so who's he working for then? Himself? The Punisher, 2004. Travolta takes on the role of Howard Saint, a mob boss who loses a son to Frank Castle's operative. Revenge is a dish best served, and Castle's family are wiped out, including extended relatives. Castle's left for dead, and so turns to the road that leads him to becoming the Punisher. The revenge plot here is simple. He sets about turning the bad guys on themselves. Interesting approach for the Punisher, to be honest, but it works, if a bit slow. A good cast of characters helps, and Travolta at the top of the revenge tree might have had a little bit more impact had he been given anything to do in the second act. Instead, he's largely unaware. The third act payout is decent enough, though it's not his best bad guy. Travolta is good in the first act, decent when he turns against his closest allies, but by the time the final assault takes place, 1, it's over way too fast, and 2, Travolta is checked out. It's still a worthwhile film, just with a few nagging issues with pace, tone and engagement, especially with the middle of the film. From Paris with Love, a real mid-budget effort from Luc Besson's action team at EuropaCorp. The minus is that Besson did sole script duties. The plus is that it is mercifully short and he engaged Pierre Morel, hot off the success of Taken, to direct. Travolta works simply because of how over the top he gets to go on screen with the action. He is here playing a knock agent, and he is clearly having fun. He's also teamed up with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, who plays a clearly and visibly inept agent. The two are fine together, the film has a decent music score, and the action is varied enough. The film ratcheted up a budget of $50 million. None of the Transport or even Taken films got that expensive, and it cost them too, as that's how much it hauled in at the box office. So no sequel then. A shame, actually, as Travolta is clearly the best and most engaging thing in this nonsense. Fun nonsense though. For example, this is the kind of bullshit nonsense where when a gunfight erupts in a restaurant, even the fucking chef runs out brandishing a fucking Uzi. Broken Arrow. John Woo delivered a rather mediocre sophomore English language effort with this. Travolta steals the show as the bad guy, nothing new there. Although this was one of his first attempts at the bad guy role, he goes a little too doolally towards the end of the film, and sadly, as much as I love Christian Slater, he's way too small a personality and a person to take on Travolta, regardless of being the good guy. Guilty pleasure then these days, it's a notch above some of the rest for having some varied action and a good focus on Travolta. Pulp Fiction. Travolta's household name turn is not so much a return to form as the widening of his spectrum as an actor. As Vincent Vega, he may have charm and a certain goofiness when he isn't the main character on show, but when he is, he's all shades of three-dimensional. It's not the most likeable guy on the planet, yet you get to see him with friends, colleagues, bosses, women, and complete strangers, and he treats them all very differently. Others threaten to steal the limelight, but Travolta holds his own throughout the film that to this day has a remarkably clever time-shifting narrative. Face Off. Travolta is ramping it up to 11, and he has to kind of match and imitate Nicolas Cage, and he gets to have all the fun being the bad guy for the most part of the film, but running off with the happy ending as well as the good guy reformed. The slow-mo gets away from itself, the bloated runtime doesn't help, and there is a bit too much mushiness, but as an engaging action film, Face Off remains riveting when it counts, and the leads make it work. Get Shorty. In terms of sheer screen presence and charisma, Chili Palmer has it all. Travolta may have been riding high thanks to Pulp Fiction, and this coming from the same production team, but Travolta absolutely shines as the debt collector turned movie producer in this extremely fun caper. A glowing cast around him, but it's Travolta's show, through and through. And number one, Blowout. Travolta shows off his worth here, still fairly early on in his career as a film sound engineer who happens upon a murder conspiracy while he is out capturing sounds. Through the use of his craft, he is able to put together the pieces and then drops himself even further into the danger along the way. Quite frankly, despite an awful lot of people knowing this film now, it is still in danger of disappearing again if people don't keep on about it, and how good it is. Sustaining a film's notoriety is the fan's responsibility as well, so having this one high on this list should help with that job. Travolta is something else in this, and we should never forget that. So there we are. That is my Travolta ranking for you. Please do comment down below. Please do like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd if you have it, and I'll be back soon.